are talking The Closet. At least that's the English translation of the movie. This is a Korean horror movie directed by Kwang-bin Kim, and essentially is the Korean version of Insidious. Yup, really, I mean, the plot is practically identical. It focuses on this single father whose wife had been killed in a car accident. He is trying to bring up his daughter, but he has a busy job and ultimately ends up neglecting her. And there is a ghostly presence which seems to favour children who are the victim of either abuse or neglect and things like this, and ultimately tries to seduce them to come into the kind of like the ghost realm where this original kind of spirit ended up because of such actions. And it's up to this father now to team up with this kind of exorcist, I guess you want to call him, paranormal investigator, and then to ultimately go into this kind of like ghostly world and try and find his daughter. What'll happen? You have to watch the movie to find out, but it really is pretty much a carbon copy of Insidious, down to characters, situations, and things like this. Even the look of the kind of this kind of other world is similar in kind of like this dreamlike, misty kind of sequence and stuff like that. But let's talk about what works in this movie. Okay, so despite the fact that this is a carbon copy of Insidious, you know, it's not a bad story, I have to say. And I did quite like the idea of, you know, having these children be sort of kind of seduced really by the fact that they are neglected, or at least in the case of our main characters, some of which are, you know, they're abused and stuff like that. But I thought that was quite a good idea, and it kind of almost acts like a cautionary tale to make sure you are, you know, giving your children enough attention so they don't feel like that. So it's kind of like ultimately has, I guess, kind of a positive message. The movie has weird tonal shifts. Our kind of exorcist character is the joke character. He's the kind of like the comedy relief, but obviously he has some, you know, insight into what's kind of going on. But I have to say, I kind of liked his weird sense of humour. It seems very much like an anime style humour. You know, certainly a kind of an Eastern kind of jokes where he's kind of eating and stuff like that. You always find that, you know, if you watch, I mean, not that you watch a huge amount of anime, but, you know, there's always a character with stuff in their face and things like this, and it's very kind of like glib and kind of making silly remarks and hyperactive stuff like that. So he kind of seems like a kind of an anime character, and it's different because it's kind of, you know, it's a different feeling to that we have the characters in the West, even when characters are played for the comedy relief. I don't think it's quite like this. So, but I quite like the change, if I'm honest. I thought he was quite kind of a likeable character who is fun but capable. That's the thing. He's not like a bumbling buffoon. He is capable, but just as a weird, eccentric kind of personality compared to our father, who is very kind of stoic and you know, serious as well. I always find it quite difficult to judge acting in regards to foreign films, because you never really know if the translation is exactly to how the emotional performance is on screen, things like this. But I've got to say, I thought the acting was okay here, from at least from what I can tell. And I like some of the designs of the kind of the creature effects here, the kind of the ghostly effects. But moving on. Unfortunately, the ghostly effects a lot of the time do seem very CGI. I like the design and the idea that the kind of these kids have kind of these whited out eyes that actually forms part of in the story. But rather than kind of going for practical makeup, the film has decided to go for CGI kind of special effects on things like the ghostly makeup and stuff like that. And there are a few instances here. It really just looks kind of CGI to me. The movie just isn't outstanding in any particular way. It almost seems like too much of a copy. It doesn't really inject anything too new into the kind of the proceedings. There's a lot of kind of jump scares. There's a lot of typical scenes that you can guess will happen, even outside the fact that it's just a carbon copy of Insidious. The movie just doesn't, you know, when you think something's going to happen, it's going to happen. Stuff like that. Again, I found the idea of the overworked father who kind of wants to buy his daughter, sort of, you know, buy his affection by buying her dolls and things like that. Somewhat of a kind of a cliched character. So ultimately, it's not a badly made film, apart from you know, some of these kind of special effects did look very cheap, but it ends up being pretty much forgettable, but it's watchable. I'll give it a 5 out of 10 because I do think this is like your bang on average kind of like ghost story. There's obviously been lots of kind of like movies coming out of Korea, especially recently. You've obviously had Parasite and Train to Busan and things like this. So I think the idea here is people gobbling up kind of like modern you know, Korean horror and Asian horror, like The Wailing, stuff like this. But they're not all going to be, you know, they're not all going to be hits. This one certainly isn't bad, but it's just average. It just doesn't kind of like do anything new with this genre. It plays it very safe. It seems like a movie made by committee. It reminds me a little bit of Nicolas Cage's Pay the Ghost as well. 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.